Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's try that again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Oh, much better. Thank you. Welcome to the New York City Retirement System's Common Investment Meeting for May 21st, 2018. As per our usual procedure, we're going to start by convening the meeting at all the boards. So let me start with the fire department. Mr. Dunn, would you like to take the reins here?
Certainly. Good morning, John.
Good morning.
For the mayor of New York, Bill de Blasio.
Who wants to do it over there?
Cynthia Collins, designee for Mayor Bill de Blasio.
For Comptroller, Scott Stringer.
John Dorsett, designee for Controller, Scott Stringer.
For Commissioner Jacques Jihad, Department of Finance. For the UFA, Mr. Gerard Fitzgerald.
Eddie Brown for Gerard Fitzgerald.
For the UFA, Mr. Leroy McGinnis.
John Kelly for Leroy McGinnis.
For the UFA, Mr. Edward Brown.
Here.
For the UFA, Mr. John Kelly. And for the UFA, Mr. Peter DeVita.
Here.
For the UFOA, Mr. Jack Kelty.
Here.
For the UFOA, Mr. John Farina.
Here.
For the UFOA, Mr. Paul Mannix.
Here.
And for the Fire Commissioner, Terrell Brown. Okay.
Cynthia Collins has the proxy for Terrell Brown.
We have a quorum.
You get that, Jeff? Okay. Okay, thank you, Pat. Let's move on to the Police Pension Fund. Kevin Halloran.
Good morning. Representing the PBA,
Representing the PBA, Joe Alejandro, designee for Patrick Lynch, John Puglisi, Mubarak Abdul-Jabbar, and I have the proxy for Merritt Riley until he arrives.
DEA,
Michael Palladino, DEA.
SBA,
Anthony Burley, designee for Ed Mullins.
LBA,
Lou Turco.
CEA,
Chris Monahan, designee Roy Richter, CEA.
representing the Commissioner of Finance,
Antonio Rodriguez, designee for Commissioner Jihad.
representing the Mayor,
Antonio Rodriguez, designee for Mayor Bill de Blasio.
representing the Comptroller,
John Dorsett, designee for Controller, Scott Stringer.
and representing the Police Commissioner.
Stephanie Zimberg, designee for Police Commissioner O'Neill.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Kevin. Let's move on to the Teachers Retirement System. Patricia Riley.
John Adler,
I am here.
Thomas Brown,
Here.
David Kazansky, Deborah Penny,
Here.
Raymond Orlando, John Dorsa.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you, Patricia. And NYSERS, Melanie Winery.
Morning, Chair, Mayor's Office.
I'm not sure your mic is on.
Morning, Chair, Mayor's Office.
John Adler, present.
Controller's Office.
David Jetta for Controller, Scott Stringer.
Public Advocate's Office.
Larry Schimmel, representing Tish James, Public Advocate.
Borough President Manhattan. Borough President Brooklyn. Borough President Bronx. Borough President Queens.
Alan Swisher for the Queens Borough President.
Borough President Staten Island. International Brotherhood of Teamsters.
Ruben Torres for the IBT.
Transport Workers Union.
David Katzman for President Tony Otano of TW Local 100.
District Council 37.
And Ray Santander for Henry Garrido.
We have a quorum.
Great, thank you, Melanie. And Board of Education Retirement System, Mr. Rich.
Mr. Adler, good morning. We are represented here by Chairman Raymond Orlando. We will not have a quorum today, but we will dispense with this business at our regular board meeting on May 30th.
Dispense with it, huh?
Well, we will deal with it. All are invited. Please come visit.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay. Oh, yeah. Alderman, just make yourself present for the stenographer.
Aldrin Bonilla on behalf of Manhattan Borough President Gil Brewer.
Okay. Thank you, John. Good morning. All right. So we're now going to start with our public session. At the conclusion of public session, we will entertain motions to enter executive session. And then, just so folks are clear, then we'll caucus downstairs in each board after lunch. Okay, so starting with public. Oh, is everything's in executive session this morning?
No, the compliance and emerging managers
yes, thank you. That's what I
discussions
thought.
are
Okay.
in public.
So we start with the compliance update, and Ms. Bott, I believe you're taking us on that adventure.
Yes, good morning. I hope everyone had... Oh, yes, I am Shachi Bhatt. I'm the Chief Compliance Officer here at the Controller's Office. Do you need that spelled? No, okay. So I would like to take you through a little bit of an overview of our compliance department, as well as give you some highlights of all of the things that we've been working on in 2017, as well as things that we're looking forward to in 2018. I welcome questions, so please do not hesitate. First and foremost, I'd like to introduce you to my team. Sonia Cowan, she's our Senior Compliance Analyst. She joined in October of 2015. She is primarily responsible for helping to monitor investment guidelines and making sure that all of the rules and the calculations that are prescribed by your investment policy statements are being properly monitored as far as what our managers are doing for you. Susan Rhee, a compliance analyst who joined in June of 2016. Susan is helpful in helping with disclosure documents, which are a set of documents that all public and private market managers review when they are brought on board. We like to look at conflicts of interest, any regulatory red flags, just to make sure, whoever we are recommending to you passes that compliance muster. And Mara Zaldanis, she joined in March of this year. Mara helps out with both investment guideline monitoring from a day-to-day compliance perspective, and as well as our business continuity plan, and also some of the similar due diligence that Susan performs in her role. So we were up to quite a bit in 2017. In addition to our daily compliance monitoring and our usual processes, I'm a firm believer that ongoing regular training is very important for staff. So every year we pick a couple of different topics that we think are critical and helpful in making sure that we are following all the rules, regulations. In 2017, that included Freedom of Information Law, or FOIL, training for all employees in both the Bureau of Asset Management as well as our Office of General Counsel. So we worked closely with them to administer that, as well as records management training. I think it's very easy for books and records and documents to be, if you're not careful, unorganized. And so, we just like to reinforce how the city has a records management process. And, we had an employee, our records officer from the Bureau of Administration, come in and really train us and help us stay organized. We have also implemented over the last year and a half or so a really robust new hire onboarding process. It's sometimes a little bit challenging when you join the city, and if you've never worked for a public official before, if you've never worked in an investment advisory role, these things can be, a little bit challenging, confusing. So we, myself, as well as our ethics officer, have come up with a robust training that both addresses investment advisory, compliance rules, regulations, as well as conflicts of interest. We had 28 new employees that joined our bureau last year, and all of them received the same level of training. During this training, they are also set up with the information on how to comply with our personal trading policy, which is a policy that was implemented in July of 2016. And so, happy to say that we have full compliance with that policy. So, every year we issue what is called an annual compliance and ethics questionnaire. It is approximately 40 to 50 question compliance-related questionnaire that we delivered to all of our managers, both public and private, as well as all of your consultants. Last year, we have been able to automate the process. So what was previously a very manual review of all of our forms, all of their submissions, Now it's an automated process, and because of that, we're now able to look at just the red flags, just the exceptions that might be of concern, and thankfully none have been identified to date. So we cover quite a few topics. Some of the things that I've listed here, this is just a sampling of it, but we look at campaign finance contributions, we look at any material litigation or perhaps regulatory investigations, and then we look at any substantive changes to a firm's compliance program. So, if for some unknown reason they decided to cancel their anti-money laundering policy, we would know about it through this. That has never happened. In fact, most firms are strengthening that, so that's a great thing. You have in your memos the results of our compliance, annual compliance questionnaire in the back in the executive session. If you have questions that are specific to that, I'm happy to either come to your caucus or I can stay for executive session, whichever you prefer, to answer any of those questions. I'll just pause there for a moment for any questions so far.
Any questions so far? Okay. Keep going.
Okay. So 2018, it's the same drill. This year we've enhanced the questionnaire somewhat to cover some of the new regulatory rules and requirements actually across the ocean in Europe. There is a new rule called MiFID II. It doesn't necessarily apply to our U.S. funds. However, there are, we like to make sure that our managers are complying with it. What are they doing? Do any of the, things that they've implemented affect our systems? That is the new question that we are, really interested to see what the results are. The questionnaire was released May 1st. The results are due at the end of this month for public market managers and the end of next month for private market managers. So, we will continue to keep you updated with any material issues or concerns. And again, it's a mandatory filing for all of our public market managers, and it's optional, but it's very strongly encouraged for private markets.
Can I just ask, why that distinction? Why is it mandatory for public and optional for private?
So I believe that the reason is it goes back, several years. I think that the reason is on the private market side, the materials that we would ask for in the compliance questionnaire, the questions that we would ask, are really thoroughly covered by the due diligence team. So, in history, I suppose, they were already being covered. So it didn't become a mandatory requirement to put in the side letter for a manager.
Let me ask this, and maybe you're not the right person to answer, and maybe not. This is not the time to ask it. But it strikes me that if a manager, private manager, doesn't answer the questionnaire and comes back to us for a re-up, that would be concerning. I don't know if you want to comment on that. I mean, I understand that,
Sure.
At the time we did the due diligence, we're covering these questions, but that could be 3, 4, 5 years ago. And,
Sure.
I know we have no leverage over them once we're in the fund, but the only leverage we would have would be if they come back for a re-up. So I would think, honestly, that if they didn't answer our questionnaire and they came back for a re-up, that ought to be disqualifying. Just like if they don't submit their ILPA templates now, that's disqualifying.
So I would maybe just add a couple of things for color in case this alleviates your concern. One, I think in the last two years or so, the compliance department has really increased our diligence and our monitoring ongoing for all managers, public, private, everybody, where, actually just recently we've set up news alerts so we can hear about anything that happens on a regulatory perspective. We work extremely closely with the private markets teams when they're both, doing initial due diligence with, a whole compliance diligence process. And then annually, when they all attend their limited partnership meetings, they know very well that if there's a compliance issue, or let's say the SEC is doing a routine examination, they come, they talk to us. We have lots of things set up where, we have the ability to have a call, we have abilities to go on site, read any letters that have been issued by, let's say, a regulatory agency or an auditor. So, I think that to say that it's just done on the front end and then we, set it up and then we kind of forget it, it's not true. Annually we also are going to start looking at all of their regulatory filings that are available in the public domain. So the SEC has a website where you can go and look all of these things up. I think there are lots of places for us to continue to monitor these managers.
John, I just add one thing to the presumption that you made in your comment. I think the place to address this is in the fundraising cycle with the private markets. When we approach them for due diligence and we set down our requirements. We have not set down a requirement that they fill out this annual disclosure. We've made it optional. And I think it would be difficult to say that if they didn't fill out an optional form, that would disqualify them. I think what you might want to do is, if this is important, to strengthen the requirements when we do the fundraising.
That's what I'm suggesting is why is it optional for private?
Right.
Again, with the public managers, we have the ability to terminate them at any time. So if they refuse to do it, we could say, okay.
It has, as Shachi said, with the cycle of communication from private managers, which happens at the time of fundraising, side letters, et cetera, versus public managers, where you have an ongoing relationship that can be terminated at any time, which is why we do the annual disclosure. But as Shachi also mentioned, there is some overlap, not complete overlap, but there is some considerable overlap between the questions that we ask during the due diligence process to the private managers and the questions in the annual questionnaire. So there's a lot of duplication. This is something that we can examine and look at more closely down the road. In practice, it's not that much of a problem because most of the funds that we have that opt not to, the private funds that opt not to give us a response are runoff managers.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a theoretical
Can I just
problem.
ask, some of the private managers are not, time-limited limited partnerships. Some of them are open-ended. Some of them are separate accounts. For example, in OFI and real estate for the most part. So with those managers, we could decide to terminate them. Also, I don't know if hedge funds are counted as private managers or public managers. But so those funds don't have the limited partnership structure. I would think that we would want to make it mandatory for them.
Yeah, you make up a good point. I was just trying to say that I think since it's optional right now, it can't be disqualified.
I understand that. I guess I'm asking to revisit.
We would certainly look at that.
Okay, thanks.
And thankfully, the partners that you just mentioned that are in those specific asset classes have all complied, and they all submitted everything, and we've reviewed it. There were no red flags or issues. So, I hear your point, and I take it, but silver lining there, right? So last but not least, I just wanted to talk a little bit about what we're working on in 2018. I know we're coming to close to the middle of the year. Compliance is really focused on helping to enhance the operational due diligence for all investment managers. So if in the back of your memo, we've included a sample checklist of all of the things that my team looks at before we go to the investment committee and say, yes, we have no issues or discomfort with this recommendation. We think it's pretty robust. We continue to help it grow as we implement more automation. You know, some of the things that we do look at are campaign finance contributions, which there have been none. We also look at you know, we have a call with them. It's usually about an hour. We always demand that we speak to the chief compliance officer of the firm so that we understand the tone from the very top, which has been very helpful in our due diligence process. And then, you know, we'll just continue to enhance that and make that more robust over the next year or so. We have some training planned for the fall, third quarter and fourth quarter. It's everyone's favorite topic, conflicts of interest, as well as fiduciary training. We've had this training before. I think last year when I presented, I mentioned the same two topics. Those two are so critical and so important that we think regular training is, you know, it's extremely important and just critical, and you can't have enough of it. So we will be administering that for all of the Bureau forthcoming. And then, you know, last but not least, we continue to implement technology and efficiencies in our team. So we're just going to continue to develop our internal policies, procedures, just continue to be audit ready. So I will pause there for any questions.
Any questions for Shachi? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shachi. Good job. Next, let me just note for the record that Andrew Gennardis from the Brooklyn Borough President's office has arrived. Susanna Vickers from the Controller's office has arrived. Are there any other trustees that we missed?
Aldrin.
No, we already got him. Yeah, could you just...
Merritt Riley from the PBA.
Great, Merritt. Okay. Terrific. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks very much. I just want to commend Shachi for the work that she's done. Shachi, how long have you been here now? 3 years? 3 years. Yeah, just about 3 years. It's amazing how robust the process is now, how consistent it is, and it's almost become routine. And there was nothing routine about getting these things going at the beginning. It was a lot of hard work. Shachi was doing it almost alone at the beginning. She's got capable assistants now. It really feels good. It's really working smoothly. So thank you. I want to talk to you just briefly about, where's my slide here? There it is. About emerging managers. I've received some questions about them, what our plans are for emerging managers, and of course we have no plans without instructions from you. And so I wanted to begin a conversation with you about some of our thoughts on emerging managers and where we go from here. We're very proud of the emerging manager programs that we have, the managers that we've been with at a very early stage. You know, for an emerging manager program, these are managers that usually are too small or too young to make our minimum criteria for a regular RFP or a regular manager search in the private side. And so we set aside money to try and go out and find young managers. And when you build a relationship with them at the beginning, it's very, very helpful from a perspective of a long-term relationship. Terms are very favorable when you do that. And we've had several firms that we've been involved in with almost from the start, but not quite from the start. And as we look out at the market today, well, we've been very successful in private equity and in public equity, in finding managers that are at an early stage or an emerging stage. We have not been as successful in the other asset classes. The population of emerging managers, managers that just miss our cutoff but have been in business for 2, 3, 4 years, have raised 1 or 2 funds, is very, very small. And so what we want to do is to create some programs to broaden our reach of emerging managers. to other asset classes, real estate, high yield, alternative credit in general, as well as infrastructure and others. And we feel that we're going to have to go a little earlier stage in order to do that. And in order to do that, we're going to have to get some help, because we don't have the resources within BAM to do the coaching and mentoring that is involved in helping a manager go from being an investment person to being a full-fledged manager and a business person. And that is a real art. It's a specialty. And so what we'd like to do is to get some mandates to hire fund-of-funds providers to look for early-stage managers, and in many cases, first-time funds. This is something we haven't done before. We think it'll be very helpful to broadening the base of our managers. We have collectively as 5 boards an interest in finding firms that are led by minorities or women. We think that we're likely to get that as a collateral benefit of a program such as this, and that's our intention. We would come back to you sort of sequentially across the asset classes with a program, and we would have the justification for it. We would bring it to a vote here at the SIM. So I just wanted to raise that with you. No need for a discussion now, but I wanted to put it out there. We're happy to get your input and guidance, and nothing will happen without your say-so. You're the board. You make all the decisions with regard to these things. I'll open it up in case there are any comments or questions.
Questions for Scott, excuse me, on emerging managers? Mr.
I just
Alejandro.
want to say I'm glad you've come over to that opinion, that nothing will happen without the board's approval. I appreciate it.
Officer Alejandro, I have always been of that opinion. It never crossed my mind that the situation was anything but. Anyone else? Okay, with that, I think we're done, Mr. Facilitator, with our open session.
Okay. If there's no other public session business, we will entertain motions to enter executive session at each of the boards. Let's start at NYSERS. Is there a motion to exit public session and enter executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Gennardis. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Bonilla, thank you. Okay. Brooklyn and Manhattan, forever linked by the Brooklyn Bridge. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to enter executive session, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Next, teachers. Is there a motion to exit public session and enter executive session?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Penny. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Any discussion? All in favor of exiting public session and entering executive session at teachers, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Okay, motion carries. Police, is there a motion to enter executive session and exit public session?
Motion to exit public session.
Thank you, Officer Alejandro. Is there a second?
Second.
Well, I saw Mr. Palladino. 'Cause I was
Oh,
facing that way.
I'll defer to Mr. Palladino.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to exit public session, enter executive session at police, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. And at fire, is there a motion to exit public session and enter executive session?
Motion to exit executive session.
No, exit public session,
Exit,
right, Eddie?
enter public session.
No, exit public session and enter executive session. Is that?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Mr. Dorset did the second there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I gave the second.
It was Mr. Brown who made the
I had a
motion.
quicker response time. Thank you.
Been working on that,
it,
John.
John.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor of the motion at fire to exit public session, enter executive session, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, we're all in executive session. If you please turn the cameras off. And I would ask the members of the public and the press to please exit the room. And I think given how short our public session was, we can enter right into our first.
During the executive session, the board discussed various investment matters, reviewed personnel decisions, and also made decisions which candidates to hire. We now need a motion to adjourn. Do we have a motion? Motion to adjourn. Second, any objection? Motion passes, meeting's adjourned.
So we're now in public session, and with that, I will turn it over to Susan Stang, who will give a recap of today's activities.
An update on the Emerging Manager Program was presented. One manager on the watch list was discussed. An infrastructure deal was presented and discussed. Consensus was reached, which will be announced at the appropriate time. A private equity deal was presented and discussed. Consensus was reached, which will be announced at the appropriate time.
Any other further business before the board today? Seeing none, I believe a motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
Ms. Penny, second.
Second.
Mr. Kazansky,
I'm sorry, can I get your last name? Penny. Penny, okay.
second by Mr. Kazansky. All in favor?
Aye.
Public session. Melanie, would you please report out of executive session?
The board agreed to commit funds to an infrastructure fund, the details of which will be disclosed at a later date. And the board agreed to commit funds to a private equity fund, the details of which will be disclosed at a later date.
Thank you so much. I think that concludes our business for today. A motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Bernardus. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Katzman. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to adjourn, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned.
Executive session, the trustees heard presentations from managers and recommendations from its consultants. Actions were taken in the following asset classes: infrastructure and private equity. Details will be made public at the appropriate time. In addition, since their last board meeting, the trustees took electronic votes regarding the fiscal year 19 budget and an investment matter. Details to be made public at the appropriate time.
At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn.